It's time to really beef up the Draglink and the tie rod and throw a high steer on there. But what does that mean? We're going to talk about it today in this video. Stay tuned. Hey guys, before we begin the discussion and install with my good buddy Mike, I want to give a special thanks to Northridge 4x4 for sponsoring this video. You know, they've got a huge selection of Jeep aftermarket parts and accessories, and at the end of this video I will leave links in the description for all the stuff we installed today. Now let's kick this off. I think you're really going to enjoy this video. Welcome to TrailRecon, I'm Brad, and today guys, we are upgrading the tie rod and Draglink with Steer Smart's heavy-duty Yeti high steer system. This is a rock solid system, and we're going to talk about what high steer is. And I've got my buddy Mike here. Mike, thanks man for coming and hanging out in the garage. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, look, so you guys have probably seen Mike. He's done lots of cameos in the past. Well, you've been in a couple videos. Which ones have you been in?
Most recently was the ham radio install.
Okay.
And then we did your lift, I believe, as a Jeep build.
Yeah, he's got a lot to do with the build on TrailRecon's rig, man, and I really appreciate all your help along the way. Today we got your expertise in here. Talk a little bit of your history, Mike. I know you've been turning wrenches for a while.
Yeah, I started as a little kid in the garage with my dad. Up through high school, and then got a job at a local dealership. Started as the kid who swept the shop floor, all the way up through heavy lines technician. Moved my way over into the body shop and did some collision repair, and then been doing that for about the past 20 years.
Nice, man. Well, it's good to have some of that experience here today, because we're gonna get a little technical and talk about some of this stuff, right? Yeah. Okay, so tell us, tie rod and Draglink, what do they do? What are they for?
So the main function of the Draglink is it makes the connection between your steering box, the pitman arm, down to your steering knuckle. So that is what takes the input from the steering wheel through the steering gear out to the wheel.
Right.
And then the tie rod is just that. It ties the two wheels together so both wheels move in the same direction in unison.
Yeah. And when you lift your Jeep and you throw bigger tires on there...
Yeah, you can wreak some havoc if you don't adjust your steering and suspension accordingly.
Right. So we've got... This thing is beefy. Even you noticed how beefy this thing is, right?
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Now, this is a high steer setup, which means it's going to be... The Draglink is going to be installed over the knuckle. Why are we doing that?
Well, you're basically, since you've raised the steering center line up when you raise the frame of the Jeep, now you need to also raise the steering center line above the knuckle, and it helps close the distance closer to what your stock dimension is, so you lose some of that bump steer.
Yeah, yeah. And I was taking some measurements, some rough measurements under there, and it's actually going to raise it about 4 inches, so it's going to be a little more parallel with the tie rod, right?
Absolutely. Parallel is what you want. You want to try to return your Draglink to as close to parallel as you can. You'll never get it totally parallel,
right?
But the closer to parallel it is, then you'll eliminate some of that bump steer.
Nice, nice. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the specifics about this stuff. So what we have here, guys, we've got basically just 3 components. It's going to be pretty easy install, right?
Yeah, it should go pretty quick.
Hard. We've got Steer Smart's Yeti XD tie rod, Draglink, and then we also purchased their 1 5/8 inch dampener, which is going to fit perfectly on these beefy bars. Now, Mike, these are right-hand, left-hand thread. Why is that important?
Well, it's important so once you have the tie rods bolted into the car, you're able to make adjustments by simply turning the tube, one direction or the other, and that will increase or decrease the distance between the 2 mount points.
Oh yeah, it makes it easy, and they're both that way, so that's awesome. Now these are 4130 chromoly steel. All the ends are greasable. Now these are forged steel. They've got a very nice powder coat on them, and they are made in the US of A, which is pretty cool. And they've also supplied some very nice instructions with detailed color photos, which I really like. I can't wait to get these on and see if it actually firms up the steering a little bit and gets rid of some of that. I mean, when I hit a bump, it's not crazy obnoxious, but I do notice a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see if we lose that. So
yeah, they're definitely beefy.
All right, we ready to get these installed?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, Mike, we've got the tires off and up on jack stands. What's next?
Well, first we want to take a couple measurements. We're going to measure from this factory casting line in the knuckle over to the other side if we have access, and that will give us the dimension that we need to set the new tie bar. If we can't get across, then we can drop the tie bar and measure from the grease fitting across to the grease fitting on the other side, and that'll set the length for the tie bar as well, because the grease fitting is going to be centered.
Nice.
I got a tip for you. When you're measuring with a tape measure for accuracy, you never want to use this end because it's loose. What you want to do is start from either the 1 or the 2 inch mark, so that way you know you have it right on.
Now the tie rod measured 58 and 9/16, but every modified vehicle is going to be a little different. After the measurements, Mike removed the end bolt to the steering dampener that attaches to the tie rod.
One of these days I need to replace that stock one, don't you think, Mike?
Yeah, it's actually not bad.
Not bad? No rush then.
Next we'll remove the cotter key to remove the nut off the tie rod. Next we'll remove the nut from the tie rod end. Okay, one tip here is to leave the castle nut on and level with the top of the thread, so you'll be able to use a hammer here to push it down if you need to. If you need to strike the knuckle, it's okay to strike here and then across the top here. Striking here will help loosen the taper. Okay, next we're going to work on removing this drag link here. We're going to start by removing the cotter pin here, and then we'll remove the nut so we can drop the drag link down. A little whack here, and then you can hit it down.
So we don't have much room to access this castle nut at the top of the drag link. So Mike's going to rotate the steering wheel all the way to the passenger side, and that's going to free up a ton of room. Going to make it much easier to get to now. All right, guys, you'll remember that when I installed the Poison Spider bumper, we had to relocate the vacuum pump, and it's a little bit in the way, so we're going to take this off before we start hammering on the drag link there.
So it's okay to hit on the pitman arm. What you want to do is you want to brace it on one side with something heavy, a block of wood, another hammer, but you never want to drive straight in towards the steering gear. Side to side is okay. You're not going to have to, go bananas and try to crush it. You're just using a little bit of vibration to break the taper loose.
Now, worst case scenario, pickle fork or something like that, but we want to reuse these, so we don't want to tear that up, right?
Right, exactly. Okay, again, you're going to keep the castle nut on the rod end. Make sure it doesn't fall down and hit you.
All right, so no luck with the hammer, so pickle fork in action?
Yeah. Get it started in there.
There it is. Did we rip the boot?
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what are we doing?
Well, we're going to take our drag link measurements and make sure the drag links are the same lengths when we put them in the Jeep. We know that the distance is correct.
Okay.
We're at 42 3/4. Okay, so now we'll measure the replacement drag link. And we'll see here we're just a little bit short, about a 1/4 inch, so we'll widen her up. And we're right there, 42 3/4.
Once we had the length set, we just went ahead and tightened down the clamps.
So it said in the instruction like 5 times, right, Mike, to make sure you take these plastic end pieces off, so don't forget.
Yeah, they were pretty adamant about making sure the plastic protector comes off.
Yeah. And then on this side
has a caution that says 100 to 110 foot-pounds required.
And then we've got that tapered sleeve that should be in this one too. Can you kind of explain a little bit, Mike, what that sleeve's all about?
Yeah, so on the stock setup, the Draglink comes up from the bottom, so the taper is shaped in that direction. But since this one's going to come in from the top, this sleeve takes up the space in the taper.
And that's what prevents us from no drilling or anything like that, right?
Exactly.
Some systems you do have to do that, where this is a no drill system.
Right.
So we can always go back to stock if we want to.
Okay, I'm going to put the sleeve up in from the bottom, and then this will slide down, and then that sleeve picks up the taper, and then the nut will go on, and we'll torque this nut to 110 foot-pounds.
Man, that thing already sits up really high and level. Love it.
So what will happen is when you go to tighten this nut, the tie rod end will actually turn. So you need to hold that. Okay, then once you get the nut to seat, you want to go ahead and torque it down.
All right, to keep the tie rod nut from spinning, you put an Allen wrench up here and then just start tightening it down. All right, Mike, -1.
-1.
What are we shooting for?
So we're shooting for 58 9/16. And I am just a little bit short. So open it up a hair. Okay, should be good right about there.
After tightening down both tie rod end links, we went ahead and torqued them to 67 foot-pounds.
So we're about to install the steering dampener bracket onto the tie rod, and with this you're going to want to use blue Loctite on the bolts. Blue in the red bottle.
Blue in the red bottle. I love it. Genius.
Alright, so when you place the steering dampener bracket on, we're using the stock stabilizer, so we're going to use the smaller of the 2 holes. And so we're going to want to orientate that towards the dampener so there's no interference like this. Definitely nice and strong. So what we want to do here is we're going to position the steering stabilizer. So what we want to do is compress it in as far as it'll go, and you want to bring it out about a 1/4 inch.
Okay, and we've got the steering wheel all the way to passenger, right?
All the way to the passenger side, that's
okay.
correct. And so we know that's where it's going to set right there. You want to try to get the gap uniform from top to bottom. This gap here, you're going to want the same gap here. Okay, you just want to start by getting them all snug. And I like to use a cross pattern. All right, next we'll grease up all the rod ends. And I like to grease it until the boot expands. You get just a little bit of seepage.
All right, guys, before we throw the tires on, we're just going to cycle everything back and forth just to make sure that we've got good clearance and we're not binding with anything. Okay guys, just pulling it out of the garage, you can see the steering wheel is tilted to the left a little bit, but the wheels are pretty much dead on. So before we go for a big ride, Mike, why is it important we get this squared away?
It's important because the JK has a steering angle sensor, and if it senses that the steering wheel is too far off center, it'll actually trigger a light and throw the Jeep into limp mode.
Okay, let's get her fixed. So Mike's just going to loosen up the 2 bolts on the Draglink, and then he's going to give it a little turn. And we're gonna go watch the steering wheel. Keep going. A little more. A little more. Good. Mike, brother, you did almost all the wrenching today, man. Thank you very much for helping me out with that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a great upgrade. What do you think?
Oh, it's excellent.
Yeah.
I'm super impressed with the way it installed and how straightforward everything went, and just the sheer beef of it.
Right.
Is, you know, it's going to work awesome for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's indestructible. I mean, it's going to take a lot of work to mess that up.
That sounds like a challenge, Brad.
Maybe, right? Anyway, thanks a lot, buddy. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Hey guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have not upgraded your Draglink and tie rod and you're running bigger tires, that's definitely something you want to do. I will leave a link in the description. Head over to Northridge 4x4 and check these out. It's a great buy. If you're visiting the TrailRecon for the first time, hit that subscribe button. Love to have you as a member of the TrailRecon team. Thanks for watching.